There's always a first person or team of people, first to the finish line, first runner to break the 4-minute mile, first to fly an airplane, and the first of America's armed forces to include flying in its mission, from balloons to heavier than air. Aviation, as an essential reconnaissance platform, was an additional tool in their kit. It soon became a combat game changer. They could view the battlefront and beyond. Then the combat airplane. Now it was weapons on target and the future of air combat maneuvering. The fighter pilot was born here. It gave them the high ground, views never before experienced in a war. It brought the enemy closer. Their combat tactics would change forever. Billy Mitchell, Jimmy Doolittle, Hap Arnold, and others became household names to a grateful nation. World War I, World War II, and virtually every combat arms America engaged in, they were there. It is U.S. Army Aviation, the protector of peace throughout the world, and the first military service to incorporate aviation into tactical combat. The earliest Army aviation was born from the Signal Corps, forming the 1st Military Aeronautical Division. It was now September 23, 1907, the division's contract for a heavier-than-air machine. The requirements: no gas bag, moved in a standard Army wagon, and simple to operate so it could be quickly mastered. It would carry 2 men, 125 miles without landing, and sustain 40 miles per hour in no-wind conditions. The winning aircraft, the Army Aeroplane No. 1, provided by the Wright brothers. Initial flight training was from Orville Wright himself to First Lieutenant Benjamin Falloux, who ultimately flew the one and only Army airplane to Fort Sam Houston in Texas, finishing his pilot training by mail, not sophisticated, but effective. First aviation Army combat came in 1916, when the Mexican Revolution spilled into New Mexico. The first Army Aero Squadron was assembled for the Mexican Punitive Expedition. Soon after, in April of 1917, the U.S. was now involved in World War I, the Great War. It was a time requiring daring and new tactics, and the famed Escadrille Lafayette, whose bravery and flying record ultimately inspired many Americans to join the war in Europe. With the arrival in Europe of the American Expeditionary Force, led by General John Pershing, the fledgling aviation division of the Signal Corps was now ready to be tested. However, there were deficiencies in U.S. aircraft production, falling short of both quantity and quality needed in combat, resulting in U.S. pilots instructed by their allies and flying primarily French airplanes. Improvements were required. Though perhaps late to the party in Europe, Army aviation gained significantly from these lessons the hard way, and it was over the European skies the foundation for all Army combat aviation was formed. Air combat maneuvering, tactics, standardization of best practices. A new language was forming. The Immelman roll, dogfighting, the high yo-yo, the new breed of fighter aces, Edward Curtis, Eddie Rickenbacker, the ace of aces, and Frank Luke Jr., the first Army aviator awarded the Medal of Honor. As the interest in aviation grew worldwide, air combat and its pilots captured the public's imagination. Spad, Sopwith Camel, Fokker, names defining the earliest combat aircraft, yet it was the aviator brotherhood which stood out. The gallantry of it compared favorably to knighthood. That brotherhood remains in every military service today. But the Army needed to take aviation seriously. There was a clear need for air power to become an independent combat arm. Post-World War I Army leadership focused on both strategic and tactical aviation use in joint air and ground campaigns. Billy Mitchell and others continued to set the stage for air power, demonstrating its importance, enforcing the need to integrate Army aviation into the combat equation. By 1926, now called the Army Air Corps, and with a new leadership assignment, the Secretary of War for Air was created. Timing couldn't have been better. The fog of war was once again looming over Europe. As a result, the Army Air Corps took the initiative to increase total numbers of aircraft, personnel, and enhancements to tactical and strategic innovation in support of the ground commander. Aircraft design and production was fast-tracked. There were new fighters, and for some it was designed to the flight line in just a year. Industry embraced the partnership. The P-51 Mustang, P-38 Lightning, F-4U Corsair, and the B-17 Bomber were just some of the high-performance initiatives, each proving to be legendary combat platforms. However, the argument for a standalone aviation combat force continued moving forward, and another name change occurred on June 20th, 1941, now the Army Air Forces, the AAF, and its new chief assumed de facto membership on the Joint Chiefs of Staff when it was formed in 1942. The course was set, and Army aviation's role in World War II was epic, especially in the European theater. It was now December 7, 1941, the devastating sneak attack on Pearl Harbor, and as the Navy regrouped to begin its assault on the Pacific Islands leading to Japan, America needed a boost. It was famed aviator Jimmy Doolittle's turn, leading normally land-based B-25 Mitchells off the deck of the Navy's USS Hornet. Destination, the Japanese mainland. Attack the very heart of Japan. Army aviation once again proved worthy of taking war to the enemy, a key attribute to combat victory. The division, though, was growing. The Army had clearly redefined with great specificity their need for light organic aircraft for aerial observation, intel gathering, naval gunfire support, and recon, aimed to ensure the Army's ground mission was supported. Army aviation's birthday is June 6, 1942, and just 5 years later, the United States Air Force emerged from the core of Army aviation and became the newest of our military services. From the experiences of World War II Army aviation, it has grown into an independent combat arms branch of the Army, proving the use of vertical lift in combat, and has taken its place alongside and equal to their historic brethren in the other combat arms branches of the Army as an essential element of the Army's combined arms team. Helicopters like the UH-1 Huey, the AH-1 Cobra, and the CH-47 Chinook ushered in a new era of combat aviation focused on the ground commander's need for immediate and lethal support where and when needed. New tactics, techniques, and procedures like air assault, night vision flight operations, and dedicated medevac. There were new heroes like Vietnam War Medal of Honor winner Michael Novosel, examples of what has become the most combat-effective direct support aviation force in the world. Korea, Vietnam, the Middle East. The Army aviation team has proven no mission is too difficult and no price too high. The next generation of Army aviation aircraft are being developed now. Venerable tactical helicopters, the Black Hawk and Apache, will be replaced by new exciting aircraft currently labeled Future Vertical Lift and Future Long-Range Assault Aircraft to enhance Army aviation's warfighting capabilities. The next generation of dedicated Army aviation personnel are also in the pipeline to take their place in the proud tradition that is Army aviation. Who they are reflects those dedicated men and women who came before and who established a tradition of excellence continuing today. The mission of Army aviation is to locate and destroy the enemy through firepower and advanced maneuvering as an integral member of the combined arms team. On the modern battlefield, Army aviation is capable of the full spectrum of arms team operations and joint interoperability with each of the other services, Navy, Marine Corps, Air Force, and Coast Guard. Army aviation's motto says it all: above the best. In recognition of Army aviation's contributions to America's combat arms from the very beginning of U.S. military services flight integration, through every combat theater of war ever fought by America in defense of freedom everywhere, for the extraordinary bravery, heroism, innovation, and daring combat exploits by the men and women of Army aviation, in the air, partnering with ground forces from every service, and especially for the Army's skillful, united, and winning tactics with its own ground forces, the San Diego Air and Space Museum takes great pride in inducting U.S. Army aviation into the International Air and Space Hall of Fame.